It was October 31st, 1990. Misty Jenner and her husband Scott were parents to a newborn boy, Aiden, and a 5-year-old girl, Megan. Megan had just started kindergarten that year, and she'd made quite a few new friends. Misty was very pleased by this because Megan was a child who was generally much more shy than her peers, clingy even. She would rarely leave her mother's side and would often refuse to play with other children, even her own cousins. That had worried Megan and Scott as they were expecting their new baby. They didn't know exactly how Megan would react now that she would have to share the attention of her mother, and they were afraid that it was going to go badly. They had even spoken with Megan's pediatrician about the subject, and he encouraged them to not only start Megan in kindergarten, but to even put her in an after-school program, basically a daycare, that the school ran for working parents who weren't able to pick up their children until after work. The program was open until 6:30 p.m., and the doctor had suggested that enrolling Megan for 3 afternoons a week would help her, or force her, to become more independent, make friends even, and rely less on Misty. While Misty thought that it sounded good on paper, she was also a bit sad to be cutting the cord of this tiny little 5-year-old girl. She worried, would it cause her to resent her parents? Would she become so independent that cuddle time would no longer be wanted? Would she be angry with the new baby for forcing this on her? As it turned out, Megan flourished in the new environment. She did make many friends, and she hadn't shown any signs of resentment or anger. In fact, she was a loving and helpful sister to Aiden. This was the first Halloween that Megan had truly been excited for, and Misty and Scott were beyond thrilled by how well things were going with Megan. That year, all the little girls wanted to be the Little Mermaid, and Megan was no different. "Please, Mommy, I want to be Little Mermaid." And so she was, and they thought that she was the cutest little mermaid of them all. Luckily, Misty had gotten the costume a few weeks early because her sister, who worked at the local Kmart, had told her that the Little Mermaid costumes were flying off the shelves. They couldn't keep them in stock. The costume came with a tail that was open towards the bottom for the child's legs, a purple top with a bejeweled bikini over it, a long red wig, and a mask. Misty didn't think that Megan would wear the mask, but it turned out to be Megan's favorite part of the costume. That evening, the family headed out about 6:30 p.m. The sidewalks were packed with Power Rangers and lions and monsters of all kinds, and what seemed like hundreds of little mermaids. Misty and Scott both wondered aloud if maybe they should have gotten Megan a different costume, but she insisted that it was the perfect one among the masses. Megan was eagerly running ahead and having to be told by Scott to walk and stay close. Her newfound independence was working overtime with her drive for free candy. Misty joked about Megan's work ethic. Aiden began to fuss, and when Misty unbuckled him from the stroller, she was sure that he felt warm. "Scott, I think he has a fever," she said, concerned. Scott reached over to put the back of his hand on Aiden's tiny forehead. Maybe a little," he said. "Unzip his coat a bit. Maybe he's overheating." The night air was cool but unseasonably warm. She fumbled with Aiden and struggled to unzip his coat, so Scott held him and turned him towards Misty so she could pull the zipper down just a bit. Scott handed him off to Misty and started to walk. "Megan?" he called out, his eyes searching for her in the crowd of little mermaids. "Megan?" he called again. "Hey there," began a neighbor of theirs as he patted Scott on the back. "Hi," replied Scott, still searching. "Where's Megan?" the neighbor asked. "Oh, I got a bit distracted," said Scott. "She must have ran up ahead." "Well, I'm headed that way," replied the neighbor. "What's she wearing?" Scott looked at him, looked at the throng of children holding their parents' hands or running up to the doors. "Little Mermaid," he said, as if to say, "like everyone else." The neighbor looked at the crowd. "Oh. Well, I'm sure she's fine. Look for the one without a parent." and he was off. But that was the thing, Scott thought. He couldn't see a single little mermaid who wasn't either running towards or from a parent or holding one's hand. Not a single one. Scott sped up, as did Misty. "Megan!" they called. "Megan?" Sounding more and more desperate. "Megan!" This way and that, they saw red wigs and sparkly tails dashing about, some sleeping in strollers while older siblings rang doorbells, all with an adult, and several being placed into vehicles, either tuckered out for the night or heading somewhere else. They stopped several girls Megan's size, and none were her. They stopped a woman putting a little mermaid into her car. They could have sworn they heard Megan calling for them, but it wasn't her. Men and women holding hands of little mermaids with their hair and faces covered. They stayed and walked the neighborhood for hours, long after the children were home and tucked into bed. But Megan was nowhere to be found. She wasn't clinging to her mother's leg. She wasn't refusing to go to a door if other children were there, or unless her mother carried her. The police questioned all the houses on the block. No one saw a girl matching Megan's description. All saw many little mermaids. No one ever saw Megan again. Thank you for coming to my channel. If you would please give this video a thumbs up, I would really appreciate that. And if you would share this with your family and friends, I would appreciate that too. If you are not subscribed and you would like to be, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. If you'd like to be notified when my content goes live, please go ahead and click that bell.